Well, that one goes out to Ssumday, our dear, treasured Ssumday, the timeless Ssumday.
It's a good
back
vintage.
in great form, providing us with a nice rebound for what could have been a bad weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, debatable. Maybe it's still a bad weekend. Maybe we should talk about that.
That's true.
Maybe we should do a podcast episode about that. This is indeed 100 Thieves podcast. Welcome to 100 Talk. I'm your dad, and he's your dad.
It's good that we find ourselves here because there are some things to talk about. We're in the right place to do it. Are you powered by Ripid Energy Fuel tonight, Cole?
Oh, I am powered by yet another explosive-themed flavor name. Thursday it was F-Bomb. Today it's Atomic Bomb. And you're, of course, drinking the Cola Ripid.
This tiny little baby can. Why do they make these? Why do we buy these? I don't know. I cannot rip it tonight because I cannot be having the energy that a Ripid provides to me.
It would be irresponsible for a man to have that much energy.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, I am powered by Ripid, and thank you to Elgato as well for providing our lighting and stream capture equipment. It's good to be us. It's good to be powered by Elgato. I haven't gotten my my neon sign up yet of the logo, but I want to do it very soon. Very soon.
I got mine plugged in. It's very bright. It's a very bright light.
It is. If I had mine plugged in, you'd be seeing blue beaming all over my face.
They're not messing around with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everyone for letting us push off the podcast for a day. Our wives thank you even more than we thank you. Mm-hmm. Happy belated Valentine's Day or Singles Awareness Day, depending on which one you were celebrating. But now, what are we celebrating? Dominant win against EG. But first, we have to talk about something else, and that was a not so dominant loss against Immortals.
It was a dominant loss against Immortals.
Now, what was, Jordan, let me ask you this. Yeah. See if you have the same perception as I do. What was the line that was thrown out about that game by 100 Thieves fans? What was the excuse?
I mean,
what did you see on your internets?
I didn't do a ton of timeline scrolling, just because I didn't feel particularly motivated to.
But I'll tell you, it wouldn't be helpful.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, it feels like and we've talked about this before, feels like we do this sometimes. We lose games we're not supposed to. And that's not a great thing. It's not one of the things you want to have built into your program, but I mean, it's, if you counted up the losses we have against like sub 500 teams, I would bet it's higher than other top 3 or 4 teams. If you just did the
over the course of the last year.
Yeah. Do you think that's true? I have no idea if that's true. That's the sense I have. That's how I feel.
Well, it depends, because if you count TSM in that group, they
don't count them there. It's not.
I would say they shouldn't be accounted for it ever anymore.
You don't. If you're doing that stat, and I'll suggest this to Tim perhaps, if he's, because he could probably do this in like a half a second. Just looking at the top 4 teams at the end, or the top 3 teams at the end of a split, and what's their record against teams that finish 6th or lower. I bet we have on average a low. That's how it feels.
It bees like that. We got a target on our back, right? Mm-hmm. Defending champs. Every team is going to be like prepping their best game against us. Yep. Well, Immortals, I don't even think they got their best game against us, and we still lost. Now, what I saw a lot of is people just saying, well, had a bad fight at the end to lose it, and otherwise it was a stomp. And it's like, yeah, kind of. I think that's sort of true.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we were definitely in position to win that game.
Yeah.
Had that fight gone differently. Watching it back, it looked like we just missed every skill shot that could have been thrown out.
Yeah.
Just miss on everything, going after Power of Evil. And I think what the design of the play was is you get the kill on Power of Evil, closer activates the Syndra Soul, gets a Scatter the Weak like from the side on everybody, and it just goes bad for them.
Yeah.
But we missed so much on him, and he got away with his life, and then we were kind of out of position. And yeah, So
yeah, he got dunked to the side. And their jungler Xerxes he was just a wedge straight through our. It's like he was out of range basically, and he just danced around with about 38% HP. Hit some big abilities toward the end of that fight. So yeah, it was a strange fight. I feel like it was one of those where every once in a while I have this thought. When you watch a lot of professional league, doesn't matter the league, there are these games where it's like this is a 98% win, or it feels like it's 100%, and it's because these teams are good and they know how to execute. But right, it's like you're in the base and we're all dancing around and you're knocking down the inhibs, and now you're going for the Nexus turrets and we're all kind of dancing around. We're gonna do our final fight here, and then you're gonna win. It feels like a formality, but I think sometimes it's easy to forget that you can win those fights sometimes. And this felt a little bit like that, where it's like you have to really be on, because you can still lose a game of League of Legends at basically any point, especially if it's beyond a certain time in the match, and your death timers are going to be long enough that they can literally walk it down mid and just end. So that's, I think, where we found ourselves.
Yeah, and I definitely wonder if there's some component of like, oh, the game timer, oh, it is kind of late. I wonder if that was kind of part of it. But
yeah,
I don't want to gloss over it and just write it off, because there were some bad things in this game, and I think it would be fair to like just go through some of the things I took note of, because it's like I don't feel like this is a game that deserves to be written off as like, oh, we lost a bad fight and we lost, because it just feels like there's more to it than that. Because you know what, you can be so far ahead of a weak opponent that you can lose a big fight and it doesn't tank you. You know what I mean? Now, get late enough in the game, I don't know, maybe not, but look,
or you just, it's so hard to lose a fight because you have a stat advantage that's so extreme that it doesn't matter if they're doing everything right,
Yeah.
Hitting them with the wallet, some would say.
That's right. Early on in the game, there was a bot lane 2v2 fight where FBI, he gets like whatever the new Tom Kench, like shorter voyage is that what they call it? Shorter voyage? Shorter voyage. Whatever that knockup is.
Not quite abyssal.
He's like, so it's positioned so that FBI is like forward in the circle.
Yeah. Yep.
And FBI should have flashed back to get out of it. And he still might get, he might get hit by like Jinx Chompers or something. I don't know. It's possible. But he just walks forward and it's like definitely over. We had a chance to get out of that. He did not. So to me, that's a misplay from FBI. Yeah. And, maybe someone else can weigh in on why they would disagree with that. But to me, that's a misplay by FBI. And that happened early. And Sapajue, thank you for the gifted subs. 5 gifted in the chat, plus a prime of their own. So thank you very much. Then we had like a weird Lost Herald fight as well. Huhi just got there too early and was ready to mix it up. Huhi was like, I think, just chomping at the bit to go, because he's like, I'm on set. It's about to go down. I got my face breakers. I got my haymakers. I got my boss toss. He was just ready to get in there, and he just got there too early before we were like, really ready to follow up with him.
Yeah.
And it was like a bad lost fight early that shouldn't have happened. And then again, the fight at the end, like, I don't know. We made avoidable mistakes that, had we not made them, I just don't think we would have been in position to lose that game. Okay.
Right.
So
like it would have been a 10K lead instead of a 5K lead.
On the other side of it, okay, I'm picking up on really insane synergy between Ssumday and Closer and Topside early. Like, their ganks this season have been on point. And that masterful setup from Ssumday, perfect timing on everything with Closer roaming up.
Yep.
That is yet another example. I feel like they're doing that virtually every game.
Yeah.
It was just so beautifully done. Those two guys are just like locked in with each other right now. And that's great to see. So big plus, right?
That's a very big shift. Like I think I remember you specifically talking about how they just seem to be on different pages. Like I remember that as a point in a show from last year.
Right.
And they've had 2 now, back-to-back games, I feel like, where they had
It's been like
pixel perfect.
It's been more than that, I feel like, even during lock-in when we were losing games. So that's a big plus. Another one, there was a team fight around Baron Pit at like almost 29 minutes, a little before 29 minutes. I think it's one of the best team fights 100 Thieves have ever played. Like dancing the edge of things and like just the insane way the play shakes out and the spacing that everybody has and the kiting and using your health bar as a resource. Closer gets the Tom Kench soul, gets a double knock up to finish it off. Like it is an insane fight. You guys should watch that back. So game timer, go to like 28:30 and watch. Yeah. It was one of the best fights I think we've ever had as a team, like top 5 to 10 fights.
Was it a 4v5 to start?
I believe it was a 4v5 to start as well.
Yeah.
So insane. So it's like you got great pluses and you got great minuses. And it puts me in this position where it's like, I'm not. Look, it's easy to be like, we're writing off weaker teams or not preparing for them. And I just feel like at this point, I can't bring myself to think that that's what's actually happening. It's like our staff and our players seem too good to really let that happen.
Right.
I'm wondering if there's like, to me, it's like, look, is it harder to know where you stand with objective bounties and everything? Like how in the lead you are? Like, are we just feeling like we're in the lead more against these weaker teams until suddenly we're not? Because we don't have the gold score in front of us?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where are you coming down on this? Are we just underestimating? Are we under preparing? Is there something else? Like, how can you explain our relative underperformance against bad teams while we're performing very well against good teams, seemingly?
Yeah. That is the evergreen question. I mean, I think there's a little bit of this, which is, it's hard to say how much of this is on us and how much of this is just on changes to the game. I'll say, just as a general note, I think that with League of Legends, especially, if the games are trending longer, and I'm sure somebody's got a stat out there to say this is actually the fastest season of all time.
Yeah, of course. Every time we make a statement like that.
Yeah, right. All it takes is one mistake, right? And I feel like that, for me, that's kind of what it feels like. If this game, if the same exact team fight happened 10 minutes earlier, there's a chance they get absolutely nothing for it, right? Because there's no objective to play for or whatever, because our respawn timers are going to be fast enough. So that's not to excuse the fact that we lost that fight and lost the game. That's still what happened. But I think for me, one of the things I need to see us do differently is, like, if you are the number one team, or you hope to be the number one team after a game is done, and you're up against a team without any wins, you have to win that at 15 minutes. Like, it has to be decided at 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then it takes you 10 minutes or so to close the game out, right? You're checking all the boxes. And I think that what we can't get into the habit of doing is letting teams keep up with us until 35 minutes, because then all it takes is one kind of less than optimal ult. I think FBI missed an ult on that by like probably a few pixels, right? Maybe that would have substantially changed the outcome of that whole fight. If Huhi didn't take PoE out of the fight, if he instead dunked him into our back line, he's deleted instantly, and that changes the fight. Not, and that's not necessarily even like a misplay from Huhi. It's just the way it went. So, because of the way that ult works. So all of those things, I feel like, for me, the concern I have is you cannot allow those teams to keep up with you into the late game, because that can happen in this game.
But what if I tell you that we have like Rise and Aphelios on the team? Because that was in our team comp, right? Like ultra scale champs.
Yeah.
So it's like a longer game. It's like, all right, we're just getting ready for our carries to pop off, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think if you have that, like our greatest successes with Aphelios are when we have We have plates and or a solo turret gold onto him at a certain point in the game, well before 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like you want that at 15. Rise, we saw Abbedagge do a lot of damage on a champion this weekend, and it wasn't on Rise. I don't know what the damage numbers were, but he had an insane game so far as like damage output goes. So
On the
Rise
Viktor,
didn't
not
turn
the Rise.
into
Yes.
he didn't turn into the hyper carry for us in that one. So the scaling thing, I think that if you're gonna take those champs, and right now I think the meta is favoring, Jinx is very popular, hyper carry, Aphelios. You just got to make sure that you're not anywhere close to them by the time that you need them to be able to end the game with one well placed ult. And we've seen IPI do that too. Like we've seen him blow multiple people up with a single well placed ult. So you got to have the gold lead and the items and the power spike to be able to make that happen. So that's I think that's what I'm taking from this is we got to make sure that that feels like the piece we have to brush up on. And I think a lot of it goes back to what we talked about in previous weeks, which is there are changes to the game, which I think are making it harder for our play style to do that, to get that insurmountable lead as early as we have in past seasons.
That's a pretty acceptable answer. I like that.
Thank you,
Jordan. I'm glad I asked.
I'm
glad I sought counsel with my, I guess if we're both dads, I don't know how that works, but
the dad counsel.
But yeah, okay, all right. Well, look, the main thing though is that we shouldn't like catastrophize based on this game, especially since we had a great rebound. And I will say that it felt like from what I saw, the fans were very reasonable about that. Like I didn't see really people hitting the panic button with Immortals. Everybody was upset that we lost that game, but like you didn't get the usual like, exaggeration and crazy hot takes and the trade Ssumday talks.
Guess we're the worst team in the league.
Right, that we're kind of used to, at this point. So I was proud of the fan base for that. It honestly could just be still shaking the dust off, right? Still getting the rust out. We're in week 2 of the split. Our lock-in was abbreviated, so we haven't had as many games as some of the other contender teams. So it could be that. It could be that simple. And the thing is, it's like we're playing a long game here. We're playing a game of win the split. And I don't know. I'm just not going to panic about this. And at the end of the day, we're sitting tied for first place right now. Who cares?
Well, and I think
just as long as things don't become a pattern.
Right. Well, and I think that we'll talk about obviously the EG game in more detail, but this was still standard league, right? We're still playing front to back team fighting comp.
Good point.
Scaling. And that's kind of been my thought is play that until somebody says you shouldn't, right? Like don't show other looks. I think that's a fine approach to take to a general, split of League of Legends is, unless you feel like your strategy book is so thick that it doesn't matter, because by the time somebody's preparing for that look, you have 6 other looks ready. Then I think the less you can tell people about how you intend to play the game in a best of, or when you need to bring a different look, I think that's better. Like that's less intel for others to have as they're preparing. I even saw a quote from somebody about that, talking about Cloud9.
I was going to say it's got to be Cloud9, right?
Yeah, I think it was Gilhoto saying hard to prepare for them because
because what are they going to do?
Yeah, what are they going to do? And there are just not a lot of players. I can't remember exactly. I'm losing the spirit of the quote here, but the idea is just that it's hard to prepare for them. And so teams aren't maybe doing as much preparing for them because it's just not clear what they're going to be up to. And I think that works until you start running short on different novel approaches, right? Or things get patched or, whatever, and that no longer is viable. So this is not meant as a criticism of Cloud9 because obviously they've been successful with what they're doing and respect where it's due. But that's I like that we're sticking to a more standard approach now, and I think it's time for us to think about what it's going to look like when we can't just run this look, kind of on autopilot. Especially when you
Sure.
think about a team like IMT, who, I'm sure we didn't do. If you had to divide the time you're going to spend preparing for the two teams you're playing on the weekend, I'm sure you're spending less time for Immortals, whether it's 2% of your time or 30% of your time. It's something less than 50.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That game, you lose a team fight, you pull the fire alarm, you say goodbye.
Yeah.
But speaking of different looks for how you play the game, we got that for EG, right?
Yep.
Have we? Let's talk about draft. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ssumday Tryndamere because Ssumday Tryndamere. But let's start first with the bot lane. I thought this was very interesting. So if you recall, the bot lane that we drafted was a Senna set. Okay. And that was drafted in the first set of picks. Banned away were Aphelios, Caitlyn, and Karma by EG. And we banned out Zeri, Gwen, and Jinx. So really, besides like Ezreal, all of the AD carries that we're used to seeing are gone. Right? Like, who else? Am I missing someone that we sometimes
Jhin?
see?
Sorry, did you say Jhin?
Oh, yeah, Jhin. No, you're right. Jhin was in play. Okay, good point. Jhin was in play. And we didn't pick it. In fact, we first picked Senna. And it's not like I think our intention was clear that it was going to be bot Senna and not support Senna, right? Because not only did we pick Set later in the draft, like in the first round of the draft, but also it's just like, you just kind of know that that's what the play is. So doing that into EG, into Danny Vulcan, did we wave a white flag?
I don't think so.
Because that is very interesting to me if we did. So what do you got for me?
It is specifically the flag being that we're playing two supportive champions in our bottom lane.
I don't think Senna set is like designed to win the lane.
No,
we're not setting up FBI to be the carry.
Yeah, for sure you're not. I mean, I do think that there are versions of this game where FBI stat line doesn't look like a good support stat line, right? Like that can still become a hard hitting champ. Like I think about other fasting Sennas we played. I don't think it's.
But it happens very late, right?
Yeah. It's just
so it's you are not playing the lane to win.
No, you're certainly not playing.
So my question is, did we do that because we're scared of Danny Vulcan, or did we do that because no, it just serves what we're trying to do?
I think it's a broader team comp thing. I don't think we're afraid of them. I honestly can say this not because I'm a homer. I don't think we're afraid of any bot lane in the LCS. Now Danny is good, and Vulcan's good, but I think we've shown that we can take anybody.
So can I offer a counter?
Yeah.
We haven't looked that good in bot this year. We've not looked like our previous selves. Now, I'm not saying like I don't think we're gonna be the top bot lane, but right now it doesn't really feel like we are. It feels like we're just not back to our form from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say we look different from last year. We looked good against TL, and they were camping us.
Yeah, okay, but it's like have we had? Let's see. FBI didn't he have a good Jhin game at some point?
I think so, yeah.
But other than that, it's felt like we just haven't gotten what we're used to at a bot lane. I don't think this means like we've got a problem. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Here's a take from Bamatide.
Games from him.
This split, I don't know.
Maybe it was. I think of Lockhead. Anyhow, go ahead.
Here's a take from Bamatide because this is on the topic. Most of the listener takes we'll do later, but Bamatide said we made a good adjustment because we figured we won't win through bot, and we went carry mid, carry top. And he points out closer is basically always a carry too. So we gave Abba a priority pick that fits his style, and we keep Ssumday on carry champs, while he's on fire and motivated. That to me, I read that from Bamatide as like we figured we won't win through bot. I'm kind of wondering.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting, but look, maybe it's because I watched what Danny did to us in Game 4 of the playoffs.
Yeah, this is worth going back to because how quickly we forget these things. FBI was Player of the Week in Week 1.
Yeah. So, and Kale has the stats: 9-0-4, CLG 7-1-12. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I'll concede that. But I don't know. It just hasn't. We haven't. Okay, this is actually going back to the conversation we've had on the last 2 pods.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'm still experiencing is the whole we can't smash into the tower like we typically do because of the TP changes. Okay,
that's fair.
All right.
That's totally fair.
I have to keep reminding myself that that's probably what I'm experiencing. It still doesn't rule out us white flagging this lane. I'm just interested. I'm just interested. I'm not.
Let me give you my take. Because I think I like Bamatide's take on this. This is again, you look at the previous 3 team comps we had, and they are feeling pretty standard. This one feels a lot different, especially when you think about where our areas of strength lie, right? So on any given game, if you're preparing for us, you're probably preparing to have closer popping off and destroying you. Even if you beat us, he's going to have a Player of the Week stat line. There's a good chance. And the bot lane you've got to worry about, right? And that's just, let me go back again and look at the bans they put through. Aphelios, Caitlyn Karma is for the shenanigans, I think. And then they ban Azir Ahri because we've already locked in the positions they're most worried about. And so they realize we're flexing this in a different direction. So I think this is an adaptation. I think it's right. I think Bamatide's right. And it's showing that this is one of the things you've got to be prepared to play against us if we're on your calendar, right? Because we can win in different ways. And I think that's been one of the concerns about this team in the past, right? It's really great that we have these two carries who are, gonna be, assuming this goes as we all expect it will, and certainly last year, first team LCS, right?
Right.
But to have a dominant performance coming out of mid and top is actually pretty scary, right? And the fact that Closer and FBI and Huhi were there to basically just set that up is it adds a lot of extra dimensions to the prep for this squad. Like I don't really know, with this a viable comp on the patch that we're on, and unless that changes, then I think you got to be really worried about this, because Ssumday, it's becoming clear to me, right? I think Ssumday has been great. I know we're going to talk a lot more about Ssumday.
Yeah.
But the more games he plays, the more it just feels like it's his game sense that is becoming so valuable to me. Like the way he plays weak side and split is unbelievable. And it's far and away differentiated from others in the LCS. Like this dude is so good at that, that while this is a viable pick, good luck, right? That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. I'm thinking right now too, because I'm realizing, I know I think in 3 out of 4 and maybe 4 out of 4 games, we've saved counterpick for Ssumday.
That'd be interesting to look at.
I am trying to confirm that right now.
Okay.
Because I believe that to be the case, which is kind of sick.
Yeah.
It's not. It's definitely not what we're used to, right?
Yeah, and I think you get to do that when you have as high a degree of confidence in,
and
you're not going to ban out. You're not going to ban out FBI. You're not going to ban out Closer, right? If you try to ban out Closer, you will lose. We've seen that play out, right?
Yeah. Well, certainly we were saving this Tryndamere pick. I don't think that we really saw Ssumday on Tryndamere. I can't remember seeing Tryndamere played by him before, even when, because Tryndamere top was a thing in previous 100 Thieves seasons. And I don't think we ever saw him on it. Someone's going to check me on that. But When it was locked in, I was like, okay, so this is going to determine if we know he can play this carry role. This is the thing. Ssumday is on fire.
Yeah. Yes. He's looking so good.
He looks incredible right now.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just the reward pick. Maybe this is to inspire fear in the opponents. But I, wasn't really sure what we were going to get out of Ssumday Tryndamere. And I was so wrong on that. Because I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
playing the role.
The kit does fit his playstyle like perfectly. And it made sense. I was similar. Like I didn't see it and I was like, oh, here we go. But it's just, it is actually impossible to kill him at certain times because of what he can do with his R button.
Literally impossible.
It's figuratively impossible to kill Ssumday at many other times when he doesn't have that in his kit. So you combine the two of them and he ends up dying one time. And, like that's how it goes.
Yeah. Very measured plays out of him. We're not seeing him get caught out very much. I think it's happened like once this split.
Yeah.
Where we, that was kind of like a recurring concern with him. So whatever happened with playoffs and worlds, like it just feels like Ssumday is just back in a big way. And then he completely took over this game against a player in Impact who has historically like neutralized Ssumday or at least gotten close. You know what I mean? Like Impact's won his fair share of games over Ssumday. It always seems like he's a master of limiting Ssumday's potential.
Yeah.
And he was on the Graves, which has actually been a pick that we've struggled against a lot. Historically, like not just looking at this split, because I think this split we've actually been okay against Graves, but in previous iterations of the team, Graves has just kind of been tough. And that was not close. It was basically game over like 10 minutes in. Ssumday was just too strong already. Yeah. I don't know. I just like, I don't want to not give Ssumday enough credit for what he's doing right now. And I don't think anyone's guilty of that. Everybody is rewarding this pop off that he's been having. Dang, man.
Yeah.
Did they announce player of the week, by the way? Who was player of the week?
That's what I was wondering. I'm assuming it's not him because we didn't win. We didn't go 2-0, but
yeah, because I mean he had a pretty good game against Immortals also, but
Whippo. Whippo says Kane.
Whippo, okay, gotcha. Cool. Thanks for the intel. But yeah, I think Ssumday's just he totally made the best possible use of the Tryndamere pick, and now again, as you mentioned, they got a plan for it. So
yeah,
good news there. And then also in the good news category, look at Abbedagge.
Yes.
Have you seen Abbedagge's Viktor be like that?
No.
So someone in chat, I think, said it was over 40,000 damage that he did during that game.
That's right. Yeah.
It was a lot of damage.
Yeah. I think it was, I can't remember the exact ratios, but it was close to like double the next highest, I think. Like he was just absolutely farming champions in that game.
Yeah. He finished, what was it? 7 kills? Yeah, 7-1-10. Not a bad day for him.
Yeah, and he did look at that exactly 100. He Flame Horizon Jojo Putin.
Yeah, the exact Flame Horizon over Jojo Putin, which let me mention again. Jojo Putin is my Huni. I don't get it with this player.
But
I don't have anything against him.
How can I?
I don't have anything against Jojo Putin. I hope he does well. I think he's a solid player. I don't get why he's just heralded as like the next faker of NA. You know what I mean? I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it in this game either. Abbedagge put him in his place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good. There was much rejoicing.
Yeah.
But it's so Abbedagge was somebody who looked, very rusty through lock-in and even in some other games. I mean, I thought Abbedagge's week 1 was pretty good. I was defending him in the past week, but his Immortals game was kind of He was 0-4 on the rise.
Just forgettable, I think.
Yeah,
his biggest
right.
play was using
That's a good. Yes, exactly. It was like, oh, look at all the time he bought with the stopwatch, and then other than that, it was Not sure what he did in that game. So I'm very encouraged by that on the Viktor too, which I don't know if I have the wrong feeling, but it just feels like Viktor is not like the kind of champion that I am used to seeing Abbedagge on, and like that I think of as a strong champ for him. And going against Jojo Punzakali, like, okay, this is what we want.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jojo Pun clearly super high upside, capable of doing great stuff. You get a champion like that in his hands, and there will be games where he has 12 kills. So this wasn't that game for him. And credit to keeping him in check.
Right? And I was gonna say, and he looked dangerous many times in this game anyway. There was like as a 100 Thieves fan, you're kind of like clenching the cheeks a little bit because he's like looking extremely threatening, getting solo kill here and there, super low health bars, stuff that just made you very nervous. Just like Danny and Jojo both had me on, feeling anxious during this game, even though we were ahead. So I actually I want to point that out because I still think that they played very well against us. It's just we were on a different level than them during that game.
Yeah. There was one play that drove me crazy when I saw it, and it was it's probably not even fair of me to bring it up. I figured there's something I don't understand about this interaction that I watched, but it was the solo kill that Jojo got on Huhi in the bot lane. And he had a full grit bar when he died, and I feel like he could have popped a shield at some point, but he just ran, and it was okay. The W was on cooldown. Thank you. That's Mott.
He probably used it to clear a wave like right before that happened.
There was some reason that he didn't do it. So I was like, that is going to be like a 1200 HP shield, and you just died to an empowered auto. So, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And that was his only death. So I don't mean that at all to be criticism of Huhi, because he had a really, really great bounce back set game after the previous loss and put him right back on it. But that one, I was just scratching my head. I was like, what is going on? So, okay, he was on wave clear duty. Got it.
Yeah. So, that and other plays, Danny and Jojo were strong. Danny's Ezreal was hitting as hard as, Ezreal's really can. So that for me was an extra good sign, because it's like, look, they're actually getting good performance out of these two carries that are feared, and it doesn't matter to us.
I mean, Danny finished with top CS in the game. So it wasn't that we choked him out and he didn't get any, like he had a great game, but didn't have any items to back it up with. Like, no, he was rich and he was hitting hard.
He was hitting really hard. And but we did kind of forfeit the lane state to him. Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, they got what they wanted out of that pick, out of the Ezreal pick. He was very good, and we overcame that. In fact, we ran right over it. Didn't really matter. If you're picking nits, like maybe we could have closed that game quicker. There were a few times where it kind of like just seemed stalled out for a few minutes while we waited for things to happen. But, whatever. I'm like thrilled with this game. I feel like it's a bounce back. I feel like we got Abbedagge woken up. I feel like people are, going to be scared of the Tryndamere pick for Ssumday. I feel like respect for Ssumday among players is growing right now. Did you see the comms video that 100 Thieves put out on Instagram?
No.
So they released comms of a fight down in bot side during that game, like one of the last fights, where the team was kind of like, pushing and pulling on an engage when we were strong. I think we were baroned up. Mm-hmm. But somebody, I don't know who it was, maybe it was Huhi, but somebody was like, careful, like during the fight. And Ssumday straight up said, no, careful. He said, no, careful, as he's like spinning and getting onto the back line, like encouraging them to go on. He's like, no, careful.
That's so good.
And he just jumped all over. It was awesome. So Ssumday is feeling it. The leadership is there. The performance is there. Right. And that naturally brings us to a very important conversation we need to have.
Before we get there, I have to just say, you can only say no careful if you have immortality in your kit, because then what are they going to do? What are they going to do? So yeah, Ssumday, no careful, always forward, get the Nexus.
He's playing Hoodie God style. All right.
Exactly.
So that brings us to a discussion that I want to have. There's a bunch of takes about this. Look, the 6-man roster thing. So we didn't see Tenacity again. We've only seen him in one game so far. I don't know where we are in this thing, but to me, you got to have him in for some games here and there. If you are dedicated to getting him experience, earlier in the season games are probably the time to do it. It's like the 2 times are when you've locked up first seed, which tell me when that is. It might not happen until the last weekend. We will be first seed, but it might not happen until the last. Or early, right? Where everybody's getting their feet wet. To me, it's like, have we just backed off of that completely? Yeah. In reality, very few games have passed, right? Mm-hmm. We played him. Was it against, I can't even remember now. Was it against Dignitas that we played him? Or was it earlier than that? Golden Guardians, maybe? Yeah, I don't even remember. But it's been a while. There's only been 4 games of the actual split. We haven't seen him. Oh, it's FlyQuest. Thanks, Mont. We haven't seen him in the actual split. No indications of when we'll see him. I don't know. I don't know where we stand with this. What we do know is that Ssumday is playing as good as he's ever played for 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
And he's looking stronger as time goes on, not weaker.
Yep. It's getting better. Yeah.
Is it possible this was Reaper Big Brain? Is it possible that they did this to light a fire under Ssumday? Has it been a motivational tool?
Yeah.
Or was it an earnest attempt? Your thoughts?
I mean, if you're Reapered, you can say whatever you want, right? You write the history on this.
Which is why we got to talk about it.
So here's one version of what you could say. We said that we were going to have Tenacity as a 6-man on this squad because we felt that it allows us to be our best as a team. And here we are. Ssumday performing better than he has in seasons past. Got him. Did it. Mission accomplished. Right? Didn't say that we were going to be the best team by playing Tenacity necessarily. Didn't commit to anything here. So yeah, you can rewrite the history on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what the narrative starts to look like. I mean, right now, here's the situation we find ourselves in. You're crazy if you bench Ssumday because you think that you're going to get an actual better top lane performance out of Tenacity. Unless you know a lot of things we don't know about how they're doing, because all that we're seeing is that Ssumday is directly contributing to our wins, and in some cases carrying the game. Right? That's not the player that you look at and say, let's see how this other one goes. Right? Like that's just not it. So that line of thought doesn't really hold anymore. And I guess I don't really know what it's becoming much more of like, we want to really get experience for Tenacity in the LCS. But I think for all the reasons that you have, I will remind everyone, been talking about since they announced this, you've been against this idea from the start. I mean, if I'm one of the other players, one of the other 4 men who doesn't have someone sitting behind me watching me play the game, I'm assuming they don't actually do that. That'd be pretty awkward. But I don't want to be playing with the guy who I don't think is going to give me the best chance to win, because I'm still really interested in winning games. That's kind of my primary goal, right?
Yeah.
Not to like take the guy and try to usher him along, right? If I'm closer, I want to lock in first seed as soon as possible so that I can, have the best chance at lifting another trophy. So I think you start to get into pretty tricky territory here when it comes to managing this. And I think if you're going to put him in, it's going to have to be with the implicit understanding that we are doing this to develop a player, not because we think this is our best chance to win a game.
Yeah. So they have to be careful about how they talk about this, right? Because I don't know. There before too much longer, it's not going to be defensible one way, you know. So you have to either audible or whatever. But I guess that's for them to say. I mean, I honestly I haven't read the last round of interviews and stuff, so I don't know if this question has been asked to them. You know, if I had an interview with Reaper or Papa Smithy, I would be asking them that question. Like, okay, are we going to see Tenacity soon? And you know, what's the thought behind that? Let me just take a quick survey of some of these listener takes, because a lot of people, you know, are thinking about this too. I mean, Math Geek, he said, I'm concerned we haven't seen Tenacity other than lock-in. And he said, that being said, Closer and Ssumday seem to be much more in sync this split, and Ssumday looks amazing. So maybe just having the competition for his spot has lit a fire in him. So maybe this is the inverse Meteos. Right?
Right.
This is how it happens when you perform the promotion of the underling without somebody caught up in their ego, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, okay, I need to make sure I'm at the top of my game then, you know?
Right.
Maybe that's the case. Let's see. Aaron Fernandez, who I think what was his Twitch name? He told me his Twitch name. It was like Grapes or something. I don't know if he's in Twitch chat, but he said, good question for the show. Ssumday looks to be undisputed top 2 top laner in the league, which right now, Ssumday Bwipo, is that what you would think? Yeah. Are they the 2? It looks like they're the 2 to me right now.
I would say, yeah.
What does the team do with Tenacity? Is it worthwhile to keep him just rotting away and not playing? Or should they try to give him a few games to raise his buyout in value? So now you've got that part of the equation in there too. Like, okay, so if we feel like we can stick with Ssumday, do we do things to raise Tenacity's perceived value and put him on the market? I still want to keep him. I personally, I think that there has to be the succession plan in place, you know, and so I feel interested in keeping him rather than prepping him to be distributed elsewhere. But it's a very good point. Ssumday looks as good as ever. So what do we do? I don't know. The question though, is it worthwhile to keep him running away and not playing? What does the team do with Tenacity? That's, you know.
Well, okay.
Do you think we should be playing him?
For me, it all comes down to everything we've talked about is very short-sighted, right? Nearsighted, some people would say. And here's the challenge with that. We don't know. I think it can become easy to assume that this is a good idea because of some unknown that might be happening 2 years from now, right? We know that Ssumday's contract is up at the end of this year. He's an older player. But it doesn't change the fact that today he is top 2 in the LCS.
Right. Exactly. You know,
and unless he's going to have he could be Hiko. He could be playing at 30, 31 years old in the LCS. We just don't know. And so for me, the only way I think you can justify this is if you have some reason to think, whether it's because you know something specifically, like he has said, I intend to play 2 more years and that is it. And I cannot be persuaded otherwise. You know, we don't know is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Then you have to start to invest in somebody. So it becomes much more clear, but you're never going to say that. Like, fans, here's a reminder.
Yeah.
The team is never going to say to people, Ssumday has informed us he's only going to play 2 more years. And so we really got to find the backup for him now, because you're never going to say that, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. So I don't know. It kind of puts us in a weird spot, like as fans, as a team, as everybody, to have to try to do this dance where it's like, what are we really saying here? Are we saying that this guy is better than Ssumday? Because it doesn't look like it. And you'd have a hard time convincing me that there's a better player than Ssumday currently sitting in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
On any team, Bwipo, probably the exception. So I don't know, man. So I guess to get to the point I was making.
And who knows? I mean, we beat them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, maybe Ssumday is the best. So is it worth letting him rot, to use the same language here, which is pretty strong language, but we get the point. If we know that we're going to need him, then yeah, it is. Because the last thing you want to do is sell him to a different team and then wish you had him back 2 years from now, because you're not going to get him back.
Yeah.
So it's gone. It's gone if you let him go.
Another question it would help to know about, to think about this properly, is how much scrim time is he getting? How much, like, how well is he integrated to the team's preparation and practice?
Yeah.
Is he, splitting time with Ssumday and that's all he gets? Is he making up that time with academy or not? Right. What's happening there? What's his training process right now? We don't have a window into that. The only thing that we can say is that I think over the last couple of years, 100 Thieves has proven to be, one of the leaders in development for players. Players want to be there. We have successfully prepared a lot of players for LCS. Our amateur and academy teams have been very good. So it's like there's a healthy developmental environment. We don't know, though, how they're specifically doing this with Tenacity. So, it is just maybe, if they decide to share that information with us, we can know and feel better or worse about it. But again, I don't think they owe us that information. So we just have to wait and see if they volunteer it.
Right.
I think there was one other, hold on, let me look. Yeah, well, there was one other audience or listener take about the top lane situation. That was from our very own Dear Hudson.
Ah, yes.
And his suggestion, let's just talk about how epic Ssumday is.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that you feel we've accomplished that.
I hope we've lived up to that request.
Man. Look, this is the dream, right? We brought these 4 players in from Golden Guardians, and we were like, man, if Ssumday could play at the level he always has with this team around him, unstoppable.
And without Demonte, with,
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
It's not just those 4 players. But Karlski said, I feel like Ssumday has been the best player of this split and is putting together an MVP-like performance. Which is, it's a lot to say after 2 weeks of the split.
Yeah. It's Jets, but way too early MVP.
Right. Yes. Way too early, small sample size theater. But I don't believe he will get the recognition from the rest of the league to be nominated, though. Maybe nominated, but I feel like he's in a position where he's highly unlikely to get all the credit that he deserves. So let's make sure we're the ones who give it to him. Worth mentioning, because I had a exchange on Twitter today, where people were talking about loaning Tenacity, which I agree. If we could loan Tenacity to another team, I think that's an ideal situation. However, there is no loan framework within the league or even with the other leagues from Riot. So that's not like a viable thing. I wish it was. And I think that was on the list of things that John Robinson suggested for like ways to improve the LCS. And I'm fully in support of that, because if we had a loan system right now, that would really help us develop this player who is, a lot of potential and somebody who we want to have our hand on going forward. Not to mention it could have helped us in the past a lot, I feel like, too. So,
yeah. Well, the thing that's silly is, right, there's a lot of criticisms you can levy at that. It sounds like they're not excited about it for reasons of competitive integrity. But I mean, just think about this, right? One of the big problems in leagues of League of Legends is that you have the haves and the have-nots. And how much would it benefit everybody if you could put better players on the have-not teams? Because, let's face it, sometimes the 10th best player at a position is a far cry from right, the number 1. And if you could pop somebody in there who is much closer to a 4 or 5 than a clear 10, and maybe there are academy players who would be better if they could only be, that transaction could be facilitated, then everybody wins, because you get better practice, you get better play, you get better competition. It's more compelling. So there's a lot of reasons to think it would be a good thing. Not just the fact that you could have teams actively developing more players than they have, LCS or just top team spots for. So it feels like one of those things they're going to have to get figured out. If they want this to be a truly, I think, global thing, then they're going to need to provide more opportunities for. Just think of it like, look at this, right? how many of both the US and the Canadian, like a lot of these teams in world soccer, who their players were not developing at anything close to the same rate, playing in their own domestic leagues. Well, you just send them to Europe and they start playing,
Yeah.
and it's not exactly the same because they're just good enough. But a lot of the time, what you need is to get a player exposure in leagues like LEC. It's probably a bit much to think that was get loaned to LCK or, um, you know, anywhere in China. But the thing is, we need that exposure for him clearly if we think that he's going to be the future of our top line.
Yeah, and it's just in my head, there's like so many more pros like that, like what you're saying, than cons. So I just hope that gets worked out. And that there's a framework put in place.
I couldn't think of LPL for a second, but LPL.
Oh, as the league for shipping them off, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we had somebody who's good enough to play in the LPL, yeah,
that'd be pretty sick, right?
I mean, but here's the thing: if you could send someone as a loan to, like the farm system in the LPL, great experience. Do that.
Well, anything else on the Ssumday Tenacity conversation from you? I think I'm just waiting for, like, if they volunteer more information.
Yeah.
I think if let's see, and we'll talk predictions soon, but we've got Golden Guardians and FlyQuest this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
With how FlyQuest is playing, it's like maybe like that would be a good time. We played him earlier against them and it was not good. We can play him again. Their FlyQuest has been playing kind of weird strats or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's a good time. Maybe the weird strats make it so that you can't evaluate your players clearly. I don't know. But Golden Guardians too, a weaker opponent, maybe you can set that in. I don't know. What I'm hoping for, I don't think I deserve this, but here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they come out and talk about this, make some statements in interviews or whatever about what's going on with Tenacity.
I think they'll have to.
And I think they will eventually kind of feel the pressure to have to, but at the same time, just another reminder for the sake of saying it, it's only been 2 official weeks of the season. So we'll see. But the split is 9 weeks long. You know what I mean? If we get through a third of the split and we haven't seen Tenacity play a single game, it does feel weird based on the expectations that were set earlier. So hopefully there's more information that comes out. And maybe that information will be that we're no longer doing a 6-man roster and Tenacity is going down to Academy.
Could be.
And thank you for your service, Gamsu. Which I have nothing against Gamsu, but it's like, if you have Ssumday, Tenacity, General Sniper, the future is bright.
That's true. You're very set. Yeah. If I were a betting man, I'd say we're going to see him against weaker teams. I think they're going to stick to it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Okay, so let's do... Should we do listener takes and predictions and then call it?
Let's do it.
Because we do have a couple others. I mean, we've gone actually through a lot of the listener stuff already. Oh My Josh 5 feels pretty high on the team. He said, despite the last team fight against Immortals, I think we're actually looking really good. I was doing his job. Some daddy returns. Closer doing closer things, and the bot lane is at least top 2 right now, if not number 1. I'm not sure I'm 100% on board with that. Potential wise, yeah. But he said, I think we have to be considered one of the best teams in the league. So it depends on what you mean by one of the best, right? Historically, I feel like one of the best has been top 4, right? I don't know. Where are you rating us right now, Jordan?
For sure, top 4. Yeah. I mean, look, I still think, no disrespect to FlyQuest, I still think that the odds on semifinal matchup is us, TL, C9, EG, right? And I don't see that there's going to be nothing I've seen so far this season would cause me to change my predictions on that at this point to say that that's going to be the contenders for the finals.
Well, interestingly enough, we've got the win against TL. We've got the win against EG. So
exactly.
We'll see what happens with C9 and the Church of LS when we play them. I think it's week 4 that we play them. So
yeah,
we shall see. Let's see. think there was one more, and then we kind of have a left field one from somebody that I did want to bring up. Yeah, so Zenith said, I would say, so this goes back to our conversation about either falling to the level of the low teams and rising to the level of the good teams, kind of matching our opponent's level of play that we were having that conversation earlier. Zenith said, I would say we are giant slayers, but are giants ourselves. So maybe we just have a massive Achilles heel that the bottom of the standing teams can poke at.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Not that we're giant players, we just have an Achilles heel.
We are big giants, slaying giants, but forgetting about the little guys.
Yep.
We'll see. Okay, so if you're okay with it, this question does tie into the league, so let's just go ahead with it. So Roger Mesger, who longtime watcher of the show, said, are we missing an opportunity of bringing new fans into 100 Thieves with the slow release of content? So this is an interesting question. As you know, there's no heist right now. In fact, the heist as ended. So titled was ended last year, but we haven't seen a replacement content series. We have seen comms videos go up on the socials. I think we've seen the league guys and a couple other small contexts for small content, but definitely no docu-series episodes as of late. What do you think about this? First of all, the lack of content. Second of all, a direct answer to Roger's question: are we missing an opportunity to bring new fans in?
So, a couple ways to look at this. I know that they're 100 Thieves. One of the things we've learned about them is they are very good, and I would say better than the others in North America about making business decisions based on financials and what makes sense. I think there are a lot of teams who pour money into things that don't do much for them. And so that is one.
Maybe while you're making this point, I can pull up their the heist numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the same time, I cannot say that the heist doesn't bring in new fans because it's what brought us in, right?
It's literally the reason we're here.
Yeah. So it has a role to play. I think that the ongoing question, the amount of think about that. To run a docuseries like that, you need at least I can't remember how many they had for the last. I think it's maybe 3, maybe 4 employees dedicated to that. That's a very significant investment financially. And you have the people who are planning it, the people who are shooting it, the people who are editing it, the people who are doing the interviews. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. I think it's easy to just assume you got a guy with a camera who does footage and then uploads it to YouTube, but it's a lot, and they do it right, and they don't want to do it if it's not right. So I don't know if that financially makes sense anymore. I don't. I think that the interesting thing about the heist was it was the introduction to the entire organization, right? Like the original heist was
it served purpose beyond LCS. Yeah.
Right. It was basically like the podcast startup, which is now old content. But it was the show about the team the team who was fielding an LCS roster. And how they got started and all that stuff. So super compelling watching, and it was really good. It's not that anymore, and that would be a different show. So long answer, long way of saying, I guess I'm not convinced that this is specifically causing us to lose out on more fans than that same amount of money invested somewhere else might gain us. And that's what business has to do, is prioritizing where you're going to spend your money.
Yeah. I think that probably a lot of it is tied up in that, but at the same time, it's like there are, you do have to maintain that presence. You still have to maintain that draw with people, even if it comes down to like, hey, let's activate the longtime 100T esports fans to keep buying jerseys or whatever. You know what I mean? You still have to do that work. There still should be something there, even if your investment in it is lower. And especially in this, climate where that is the norm and the expectation for, esports teams. And we've got like they did that Death Note video.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. I thought when they did that, I was like, oh, is this going to be like a thing? Like, are they going to do this as a, continuous theme for the season? And I guess the jury's still out on that because, believe it or not, even though it seems like that video came out forever ago, it's 11 days ago. It's when that came out, and it has not yet hit 10,000 views. So when it comes to monetary investment, that's that's a good point. It's compared to the other videos. In fact, I'm looking at the 100 Thieves esports channel. The last 2 videos, well, that's not entirely accurate. But basically, so there was the Death Note video, there was the chains for the champions video, and there was an AMA that they did with the team, like leading up. Those are like the last 3 videos. And those 3 videos are like the lowest performing videos on the channel over that time span, right?
Yeah.
The Valorant videos are performing better.
Wow.
There is the LCS team did a tier list video, actually. Now I'm looking at it. They did do a tier list video, but that did 39,000 views, which was a little bit better. But like Kaide was, did some random video about Kaide, and it has 100,000,
Yeah. Well, a lot of that, I mean, it's important to remember, right? You look at Asuna, you look at Hiko, like they are huge brands independent from the team. And
that's true. And we would really have that. I mean, Huhi kind of has somewhat of a thing with Angela and everything. And he's been around. So I guess he's like the closest that we have of a player with an actual self-contained following,
Yeah. But it's certainly nowhere close to.
But yeah, relative to the rest of the content, the LCS stuff is pretty low performing. When they're not doing something like bringing Lil Nas X in or whatever.
Yeah. Just do that every week.
Yeah. No, so maybe it is purely a business decision in terms of that. But I would think that there's no way we're not going to get any content. There's no way.
Yeah. They'll keep doing something. It's just a question of what does it look like,
Yeah. Just to benchmark this against last year, during playoffs, our heist recaps were hitting 20,000, 22,000 views. When we qualified for Worlds, it was 38,000. And I'm looking for the mega episode. That did almost 200,000. The end of the year, end of season, celebrate the championship 47-minute episode. So that did well, but that's kind of a unique thing. So I think there is a demonstrable trend of like, hey, these videos are lower performing relative to that, but that could be a consideration. And just, we don't typically read much chat on the pod, but Condog asks, don't they have to do a series because Riot makes them? And no, that's actually, Riot does not make them. Though it was a serious part of the 100 Thieves like application to be in the league and their marketing strategy, which was very important to Riot when the team was new. They actually don't have an obligation to do so. And, at this point, I think like Riot is willing to follow 100 Thieves' lead on anything because of how excellent the org has done entering the scene. So going back to the question, because your answer was kind of like, you don't think they're missing out on bringing in new fans for the economy, right? Like the spend that they would require, like you think that same money elsewhere could do the same thing, right? Is
that's I think that's the
same kind of investment. And I don't know. I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I
guess let me add a little bit to that. If your question is, are we missing out on bringing fans into the LCS specifically?
Period. Yes. Yeah.
Of course.
There's no question.
Are we missing out? Are we adding more fans, putting that money into content and development of stuff in other places, bringing fans in to the organization? I think that's what the conversation has to be about.
Well, and I would say like another thing to consider though is, the standard wisdom when it comes to like this kind of thing, like digital marketing, social media, YouTube, everything, is if something like is doing well, you do more of it. You keep the fire going, you add to it, right?
Mm.
And when the team didn't perform after season 1, we saw the heist numbers drop dramatically. And a lot of that was there was a format change of the show. It wasn't covering the whole org the way the original heist was. It wasn't telling the story of Jackson and Nadeshot and John building it up and you know, trying to get everything to work. Like, that wasn't a part of it. And I think that made a significant difference too. But it is true that when you are hot, like, the spotlight's on you, right? So when you are the reigning champions, you're naturally going to have more of a draw, more of an interest, right? And there's cross promotional opportunities. I mean, like, you can get the LCS to like show clips of your stuff in between programming. They do that, right? On the live streams. So I do think that we're missing out on an opportunity to capitalize on the fact that we won. We did great celebratory content that performed well. But it does feel like now we're not doing anything with that momentum. Could be that they drop something very interesting very soon. Maybe they're working on it. Who knows? But right now, we'll see. And Kane says it's been 2 weeks. I feel like we're going for quality over quantity. That is true. Again, no lock-in stuff. And there have been random intermittent videos in there that they've done, like the ranking teams and stuff. So I think, like, even with last year with the heist, it wasn't every week, right? But it just feels like there's even less of it now when our stature is as high as it's ever been for the league. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point about, you know, there is a unique opportunity to set the narrative about a team at a moment like this. And I think it's actually probably already, it's only 2 weeks in. I think it's probably passed already, to tell you the truth.
The Death Note thing was pretty cool, but
for sure,
it definitely underperformed relative to
but you think about,
the
like,
investment was.
You know, if we are, you know, if we want to establish ourselves as the reigning champions coming back to defend the title, like, you don't do that week 4, you know? Like, that's you're almost through the first round robin at that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think that's a little bit too part of the some of that stuff you're gonna have to do differently, right? So if all you look at is the traditional wisdom on it, here's what you can expect to get out of your investment. I think you're perhaps discounting more than you should the fact that, one, none of these other teams are 100 Thieves, and two, you know, they've not had a chance. You know, none of the other numbers have been specific to this moment in time, right?
Yep.
Where we have this new thing for us, which is we're the champs. And what do we do now, right? I guess, you know, we're the champs, but if we want to stay that way, we're gonna have to do something about it. So that would be a very compelling storyline, I think. I just don't know how much of that narrative gets played out if you wait.
They should do some like WWE style promos during the week. Just quick promo hits. It would be sick.
I always say this: the UFC does such a good job of building.
The UFC does too, yeah.
I don't know if they've done it in the last several years, but they used to be so good at it.
No, it's still good. So, all right, let's be prophets now. Let's shed our worldly cares and put on the mantle of being a prophet and talk about the upcoming weekend of games. We have Golden Guardians on Saturday. Jordan, Golden Guardians sit at 2-2. I think that puts them in a tie for 6th place. They won against TSM, which now really who cares, and CLG. So how are you feeling about them?
Well, strength of schedule wise, Cole, I'd say those are not the hardest 2 wins to pick up in the LCS. Although we thought the same about Immortals, and here we are. So I'm going to say we I'm going to say we play Tenacity and we don't win.
Really?
I'm going to say we play Tenacity and we don't win.
Interesting.
I'm going for it. I'm going on. I'll remind you, we've crossed the point where I just blindly predict us every game because we've lost now to an Immortals. And so I'm gonna try to go with what I think could happen. I think if we, yeah, I'm not gonna elaborate. I'll just go with that. We play.
I'm gonna zag. I'm gonna say we don't see Tenacity. In fact, excuse me. I think the 6-man roster thing may be fizzling out, personally.
Okay.
So I don't think we see him, and I think we win. Golden Guardians, it's a dub for us. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, 100 Thieves, 4-1. Then we move on to Sunday against FlyQuest, Jordan. The 3-1 FlyQuest, the FlyQuest that beat us down in lock-in. They won against TSM, but lost against Team Liquid. Where are you coming down? Do you want me to go first? Oh, you just said it. Never mind.
Oh, no. We beat Team Liquid. It was easy. That's
okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Do you want me to go first on this one, or do you?
I'm going to say, I'll just go first. We go back to Ssumday and we say an apology to him, and then we play him and we win.
All right. Continuation of your earlier take.
Mm-hmm.
I think we take down FlyQuest as well. I think we got a 2-0 weekend incoming. 2-0 no Tenacity weekend incoming. FlyQuest, no funny stuff. Let's play straight up. You're gonna lose. You hear me, flight check, guys?
No funny stuff.
No funny stuff. Yeah, I think we're good for a 2-0 this week, and we'll be continuing to be happy about the team. If Tenacity is announced for Golden Guardians, I think it's still probably a dub. FlyQuest, Tenacity, I don't know. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Though it's worth pointing out that, as a couple people in chat did, that Golden Guardians has looked pretty good early against teams, even in the games they've lost. And they also tend to work through their jungle. So that'll be a good evaluation. But to me, it's like, yeah, all right, if you're going to win through jungle against us, good luck.
You got that Pride Stalker. Flashing. Get the Kiana, the Zed.
They do play some weird stuff, but I think we're set for a 2-0 this week. And I look forward to discussing it on the next episode of Dragon Ball 100 Talk.
Crossover. That's the one.
Yeah. That's actually the new 100 Thieves series, Dragon Ball Z. They did Death Note first, now it's Dragon Ball Z. Okay, so that's going to do it for us. Hang around tomorrow on our Twitter. We'll make an announcement about Rec League. And we'll do that on Thursday night, per usual. And we'll look forward to a weekend of dubs. Weekend of Jordan being wrong. It's always great.
I was wrong
when we
last
get dubs
weekend.
and Jordan was wrong. That's just wonderful.
That really is best case scenario.
Yeah.
That I go against us and I'm proven wrong. Please prove me wrong. Let's see it happen.
Let's see it happen. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us on 100 Talk. As they say, as the dads say, we love you and we miss you already.
Take care.
Hang around and chat.